Okay, so I think we are live now. Hello, everyone. Just let us know if you see us and hear us. I'm Coach Unia. This is Coach Jen. We're here with you live on Leslie Vernick's Facebook page. And we do want to just remind you that this is a public Facebook page. So, whatever comments you write in here, um, thank you. I think someone is letting us know that you hear us. So anyone else, if you just want to let us know that you're here, it seems like there's 2 people so far who have, no, 9 people who have joined in. So just let us know. Can you hear us? Hear us just fine? And if so, just start letting us know where you are. Hi, there we go. Okay. Anna Lynn from Colorado. Cindy from Fiji. Whoa. I wonder what time it is in Fiji. Catherine, hello. Janice, Monica, thank you. Jane. Um, Janice is from Virginia. Let me see if I could scroll down here. Mine's not scrolling down. Are you able to have access?
I think it just does it on its own.
Okay, gotcha. Here we go. Okay, it's scrolling now. And so, yeah, it looks like we're having a little bit of tech issues, but there's a little delay. Barbara, hello, and Tammy. So we are in North Carolina, Meg. Patty, Michigan. I'm originally from Michigan. So, well, originally from South Korea, but Michigan since I was 6 years old. Now I'm in Chicago. So Linda from Indiana, hello. Cindy, thank you for letting us know, loud and clear in Texas. And so, yes, today, and just again, another reminder, if you didn't hear us say this the first time, that this is Leslie Vernick's public Facebook page. So just keep that in mind as you share your comments. Anyone can see them if she visits this page. So today our topic is when your needs and his needs conflict, whose wins? Okay. And so, before we hopped on here, Coach Jen was sharing some thoughts about that whole idea of when there's conflict, one person winning. Did you want to just share?
Sure. I guess as I was praying about this conversation that we're having tonight, and I would love to hear from anyone in the chat as well, that I had a visceral response to the who wins. And I understand in emotionally destructive marriages or any sort of abusive situation, there often and quite frankly is an abuse of power. There's a power struggle. And so automatically, I think that just tells us there is a winner, there is a loser. So I had a bit of a visceral allergic reaction, if you will, when I heard this who wins. And I guess we can talk about that tonight. I don't think there is a winner when there's conflict like this and in an abusive type of relationship. So I would like for us to sort of aim towards more of a win-win, if we could, and talk more about what that might look like for us when we want to speak up for our needs. I don't know, Coach Unia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of what we're aiming for, right? In relatively healthy marriages, both spouses are looking to both have a win-win situation, right? And so, Coach Jen, you kind of had said that you had wanted to ask everybody a question about when there's a conflict, what they kind of notice. So did you want to go ahead and ask that?
Yeah, I really think, I mean, the question for the topic tonight really says it, but I want to hear in the chat what it looks like. If you're comfortable, share personally or just in general, what you think people experience when someone's needs in the partnership overrides another's. So in other words, someone wins with their needs and the other person loses. I want to hear in the chat what you all think that looks like. How does it show up?
Yeah, yeah. So you can even say, in general, right? In general, this is what I noticed that.
Or
It's
picture something
usually,
on TV, like whatever you might see.
Mhm.
Because I think if we didn't notice anything, then we wouldn't be here having this conversation tonight. So obviously stuff happens, right?
Mhm.
I know for me, it would be something like I wouldn't speak up for myself. I would get really small. And when I think about the type of woman and the godly woman I want to be, that isn't in alignment.
Mm,
So to me, that's what shows up if I feel like someone's got that power over me and I get small. I don't know. How does this show up for you?
yeah. So Pua is saying it just feels awful
Mm.
to, and I think maybe she's talking about always having the other person winning or their needs being the focus all the time, to where what happened to my needs, right? I need you to, and you're being selfish if you don't meet my needs, and kind of flipping it around and saying, well, what about my needs, right? And do we as women take the time to even ask, what are our needs?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I just want to quickly say, obviously, this is a ministry focused on helping women, but there are men too who sometimes grow up in their families, and their role in the family is to take care of mom, take care of dad, right? Maybe for whatever reason, and you've taken on that role. And if you're joining us today, and if we talk about applies to you, then just bear with us as we kind of have that language of really speaking to women. But we see
Mm-hmm.
you, and we do want to acknowledge that these dynamics of abuse can sometimes happen that way for you as well. And so, Pua Ali is my first name. Thank you. Um, yeah, Jana said, I wouldn't speak up. Or the husband shuts down and I feel invalidated, Lori is saying. And so just like, I'm not going to interact with you anymore, right? And you just end up feeling validated. Someone gets loud and someone gets quiet.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really good question, Coach Jen. Um, yeah, Leslie saying mutually agreeable decision if possible. And I love that mutual, just that idea that there's both needs being considered,
Mm-hmm.
right? Jane said denying one's need. Fedra said the dominant one winning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So Annalyn said winning the argument or conflict is like winning the battle, but losing the war. Yeah.
Yeah. And I see Barbara talking about too from a physical perspective. She says it feels exhausting and draining in a win-lose situation. We as women need to identify our needs and learn to make requests. But that physical, like I mentioned visceral response when I heard the word win, like someone has to win. And I think Barbara's speaking to that too, because we can identify this and notice it in so many different ways, right? Our
Mm-hmm.
physical response when we sense that conflict and someone's needs are winning can be a thought or it can be an emotion. And I'm seeing all kinds of examples of each of those three as we read through these comments.
That's right. Sherry said, nothing gets settled, no growth. I get left behind. I get left behind. And I love that you're even sensing that you're getting left behind, because as women, sometimes we aren't even thinking about ourselves, right? And, there's kind of this idea that if a woman has needs, somehow that's selfish, whereas a man's needs are just a given. And I'm not saying that as, to kind of be sarcastic toward men or anything, but that's kind of what we see even in my earlier days. So my other hat that I wear when I'm not coaching here is as a counselor. And in my earlier days counseling, I also had my own blind spots that women would come to me. And now when I look back, they were in emotionally destructive relationships. And me, so you guys know that counselors, when they're trained in their schools and when they're going for their licensing exams, none of us are required to understand emotional abuse and these dynamics, right? And so here I was with these women, helping them to think of how they could meet their husband's needs more. Oh, maybe if you said it more gently, maybe if you X, Y, and Z, without realizing that I had my own blinders too, So, and that's what can happen today as well, that really skilled, experienced, well-meaning counselors and, really loving people and pastors, even with the best intentions, kind of without realizing that they have this blinder, that they're really prioritizing the man's needs being met and how can the woman meet that person's need. So just a horrible one that I keep hearing that clients of mine or other people have been told is for the woman who is being just demeaned in their relationship, right? Invalidated, their words are being twisted, right? And they're being treated like they really don't exist or matter. That person being told that they need to just have more sex with their husband, right? And so that's kind of pitting the husband's need for sex over the woman's need to feel emotionally safe. And that unfortunately is happening today, you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, oh boy, someone says the shut up, shut up, shut up method.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Which,
Yep.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's already like our needs are in conflict. And so that's already creating the tension. And then if we do surface it, sometimes that creates a whole other set of tensions, right? So it turns into verbal abuse or further spiritual abuse or something like that on top of whatever the topic was to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So I often see it as like a whole bunch of elastic bands jumbled together. It's just, it's hard to untwine sometimes. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so Kathy was talking about she's given him an open door to talk about his complaints. He only talks about his complaints when I'm trying to state a need or a request. So it's like they have a comeback for everything, like either another complaint or an excuse as to why they can't meet that need. One I've often heard before is when someone expresses a need, the other person says, "Oh, nothing I ever do will be good enough for you."
Yeah. And that is, a tactic, really, we can call that a manipulation tactic. So then rather than just addressing maybe just the simple thing, the bare minimum thing that you're asking, that rather than addressing it and acknowledging it and validating it, which would mean that they would have to take some responsibility to do something about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
In a completely different direction. Nothing ever that I do is good enough for you. You just want me to be perfect. I feel like I'm failing all the time because of you, right? And all of a sudden you're off on talking about another topic, right? And so how do you then, because they might be voicing something, as women sometimes we want to care for other people, right? Then you start to think, oh, well, let's try to address his need or start to defend yourself. And how do you stick with and come back to the original thing that you were asking, which probably wasn't a huge thing that you were asking in the first place? And that to just know that it's okay. It's okay to stick to that. If that topic somehow gets diverted, it's okay to bring it back and just say, hey, this is what I'm saying. It seems like you're not hearing me, or you're not really listening because you just brought up something else. So do you really want to hear what I'm saying, and kind of inviting them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, today what we're really talking about is the R step of core, CORE. And as you guys know, we have been on here with Leslie. The coaches have been on here with Leslie. With and without Leslie today, we just took over and talking to you about these various topics, right? And we have just opened our doors, just like last week or so, right? For our 3-month group coaching program that we offer here. It's we meet every other week for 3 months, and these groups are 15 women max. And the topic is walking in core strength, right? And so today, what this really is about is the R step of core, being responsible for yourself, respectful to others, without dishonoring yourself. That's really what we're talking about today. And Jen, do you want to just really quickly give a review of what CORE stands for?
Sure. Yeah. For those that aren't familiar, it's in addition to what Unia said about the coaching program we come up, this is really the crux of Leslie's ministry in helping us stand up for ourselves. So the C stands for being committed to the truth. And, that stands for your own heart. I think it's internal and external. And it's also about facing our reality, I think, right? Committed to that truth as well. O is for being open to the Holy Spirit and for additional help that might be out there, anything that can help guide us. R, we've already talked about, as you can see on your screen. And E is, having empathy and compassion, both for ourselves, but still doing it for others without betraying ourselves at the same time. So it's really all encompassing about how we can, walk this earth as a godly woman. I'm sure the way that Jesus would want us to be.
Yeah. And so we just want to invite you to join us. And for some of you, just watching these Facebook Lives and scrolling back down through all the other topics that have been discussed might be all that you need. And for some of you, it might be that for you to go into a deep dive into those aspects of core. If you want to just learn more about how to do this, and there's a difference sometimes between getting a concept cognitively, intellectually, and really walking it out, and just having the help of other members in your group, and also one of us coaches to walk with you as you try to figure out these things for yourself. And so one area of being responsible for yourself, right, and your own needs, right, is the area of sleep. Okay. I think in America, we don't tend to value sleep because there's somehow this idea in America, we really prize being productive, right? Productivity is like way up here, and so there's this idea that if you wake up early, like 5 a.m., then you're somehow more godly. And I just want to put like a public service announcement, a PSA about sleep. A neuroscientist who studies sleep, his name is Matthew Walker. And he has a book, and some of you guys might have heard of this book before. It's called Why We Sleep. And he is talking about how important sleep is. And really there are these chronotypes that for some people you need to go to bed at like 9 p.m. and wake up kind of earlier, on 5 or something. Some people need to sleep at like 1 a.m. That's when they get sleepy, and they need to sleep till like 9. And really that it makes sense for when you needed to fend off animals. It works better for a group of people to be sleepy at various times. And that's just really like a natural thing for people. And so for you guys, I'm curious to hear from you, right? What your sleep is like, right? How many hours of sleep? So what Matthew Walker is saying is for health, adults need to get an average of 7 to 9 hours of sleep, right? And if we think about just kind of scary things like dementia or Alzheimer's, right? Those things are correlated to not sleeping enough. And I don't want you to get scared if you're not sleeping well enough. There are a lot of helps out there. Lemon balm tea by Traditional Medicinals is one that I could just mention right now. But really, just thinking about this, and the reason that I bring this up is because sometimes your need for sleep, right, is not honored by your spouses. So I just want to hear if you guys can say, how many hours on average are you guys getting of sleep? Let's see. 8. Lori said 8. Oh my goodness. Tamara, 9 p.m. to 4 to 5. So that's a good amount of sleep, right? That's good.
I'm in the Connie camp a little bit. More perimenopausal. She's talking postmenopausal. Sleep is very hard to come by sometimes.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, so someone said 4 to 5 hours of sleep. Mm-hmm. And so really like you're really inviting just not a good process, right? So 3 to 4 hours of sleep, maybe 6 hours. Cindy from Fiji. So is Cindy Fiji your last name, or are you from Fiji? That's what I'm not sure. But Cindy said 8 hours of sleep. Awesome. So Ellen 6, 5 to 6, 5 to 7. I have little kids though, so there is the time where you do sacrifice sleep for the sake of little ones sometimes. 6 hours. So really just thinking about how to be responsible for yourself, right? How you can take care of yourself, and when your need for sleep, right? Your need for sleep, because that's just a basic need to not have things, bad diseases come, conflicts with your husband's need for sex, or he's upset and he wants to wake you up in the middle of the night to address you on something, right? What kind of boundaries can you really set for yourself, right?
I've just to keeping with your example, I've had women here, and I don't know if it was within this forum or another group's coaching experience that I've run, but she gets up at 5 o'clock every morning to make his lunch, sleep deprived or not.
Oh boy.
But she was getting up and exhausted. Her children weren't getting up till 7 or so. So there was a 2-hour window. She could be getting extra sleep, let's say.
Yeah.
And he demanded having his lunch be made fresh. And so she would get up every day at 5 and make his lunch, whether she had a good sleep or not.
Right. So going with that example, what would it be like for that person to kind of validate their own need for sleep? And sometimes it could be scary, right? If you say, I need sleep, then you're expecting World War III. And that's what CORE is about, right? How can you look at the truth, right? Committed to the truth of what this relationship is, right? Being open to wise others and the Holy Spirit and how he's guiding you to be, right? Because when you don't have a self and acknowledging your needs, right, then you could be enabling someone else's self-centeredness, right? And you don't want to do that. And you don't want, as a parent, to enable your children to think that the world revolves around them because mom has no needs. When mom has needs, it teaches children like, oh, another person does have needs, right? And so sometimes you can grow up in a family where your needs are not acknowledged, um, you're not encouraged, right, to know what your needs are. So just now as adults saying it's okay for me to have needs, and what are they, right? Just like it's okay for your husband to have needs, if you just think about that, right? What about your needs? It's also okay for you to have needs as well, right? And I'm really appreciating this comment that Carol is saying he doesn't need sex, he wants it, right? And demanding, just because someone's demanding something, it doesn't necessarily mean that they need it. So Jen, you were talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Did you want to just go into that a little bit?
Yeah, it's the nursing background I have coming out of me right now, and some of you may be familiar with it. But basically, if you picture a pyramid and the widest part being at the bottom is the foundation. And when we talk about true needs, okay, and I would love to hear your comments as to what you define as a need versus a want. But Maslow describes like the very bottom foundation of that pyramid is food, air, and water. That's what we need. And unless and until we have food, air, and water, and I think he sometimes says shelter in there, you can't have anything beyond that part of the pyramid without those things. We'd be dead. Physiologically, we'd be gone, right? Mm-hmm. The next step up from that is safety. So can you imagine? So you've got the foundation of food, air, and water, and the next step up before you can reach any higher level, you have to have safety in place. So that's where the next need comes from. I need financial security. I need emotional security, that kind of safety, right? And again, that's where maybe shelter could be included because you need the safety from the elements, if you will. And then it goes on from there, where you get into love and belonging, and then you get self-esteem, and then at the very top of that pyramid is self-actualization, which is kind of the best version of yourself that you could possibly be. But if you can understand that those basic needs are there, and I'm not quite sure where sex fits in there. I know it's very much part of our physiological makeup, and it's God-given. I totally understand that. But given that my background is in helping women and wives that are sex addicts, and how many times they've complained about not getting it, and this is why I turned to pornography. No man has ever died by not having sex. Just put it out there. But we can die if we don't have food, air, and water.
Food, air, and water. Yeah. And you said sometimes you can add shelter in there. And then the next most important need is above that is safety, right? And so safety and emotional safety is part of that, right? And when you don't have emotional safety, you actually don't have physical safety, because if your system is in a high fight, flight, and freeze mode all the time, right, then there is a disease process going on in your body, right? If you're living in that state, then your body is, it's in the mode of running away from a tiger. It's not in the mode of digesting, right? Your immune system is not working. Your cells are not repairing, right? That happens when you're in safety. And so it's really important to know, right, that it's good and it's okay for you to be safe. And Cindy, thank you for clarifying. You live in Fiji. Your last name is.
I saw that. Yeah. And I see Annalyn making a comment, I think, to mine, that she recognizes that on a lot of those diagrams, if you Google it, sex is in the bottom with air, food, and water. I don't know. I can't say it with all research background, but as a nurse and, like I said, as a practitioner for wives that have been betrayed, it's very much a biochemical thing. I get it, but you're not going to die. So.
And I wonder who put that together when they added sex on there, right? Mm-hmm. And how did Jesus survive? How did Apostle Paul survive? Right? How do people who are called to a single life survive? How do they survive if they don't get sex?
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
I wanted to just a quick sidebar, Coach Uni, just to let people know that as we're talking, we kind of bring up these little snippets of subtopics, if you will. By all means, post in the comments if you have another type of question, because Kim's here supporting us and she'll make sure she flags those for us if we haven't already addressed them somehow. So please feel free to put additional questions in there if we're not already talking about it this evening.
Yeah, definitely. And we're here to answer some of your questions. And, sometimes, a wife will be told, by her husband, like, I just need you to get over, right, whatever it is that I did. Like, get over your trauma, because I need a wife who can be warm, who can be present with me, right? And how does that sound to you, right? It's kind of like not seeing the wife and making sure that she is doing okay and doing whatever he can do to make sure that she feels safe, right? So
It's very one-sided, isn't it? So that's again going back to the R and being responsible for ourselves. We can be respectful to others, but not at our own expense. Right. So again, through the core coaching program, Walking in Core Strength, that's where we support each other and we go through the program, learning how to speak up for ourselves as being one way to be responsible. But maybe that's a good segue into what others might think is taking responsibility for having our needs met. I'd like to hear in the chat any ideas that you have that have either worked for you personally, or you've heard from someone else that you admire maybe, or you witnessed, as to how it is that they get their needs met in that respectful, empathetic, compassionate way. Love to hear some ideas so that we can all learn from the group wisdom here.
Yeah, and somebody is saying audio keeps cutting out, and other people are saying audio is good. So I think who's asking that question, Michelle, I think it might just be on your end, unfortunately. Narissa said, once sex has been awakened, like it says in Proverbs, it can be difficult to function without sex. Yeah, and difficult, right? Just like, what are some things that you really want and you don't have it, right? And the issue is that we're not saying sex is bad or something like that, right? But a man is not entitled to have sex at your expense, regardless of whether you need sleep or not. He needs sex, whether or not you are being, demeaned, right? Ignored, but he needs sex, right? That sex, that relationship of sex, right, has to happen in safety. Otherwise, the woman cannot enjoy that experience of sex, right? That she ends up feeling like an object. So does the husband care about that, right? And so if he wants to have sex and that's important to him, is it just as important to him that he's validating the wife's needs, right? If she says, ouch, when you say that, that hurts me, does he say, oh, I didn't mean to, right? Help me to understand. Help me to understand how I could do that better. I'm working on that myself, right? Is when you say, you know what, when you said that in front of those people, I felt hurt. Does he say like, oh, I'll try not to do that? Or does he say you're too sensitive, or I didn't say that, right? And just deny your reality. So you end up feeling unsafe, right? So we're not here to say that some, deny people of sex and, nothing like that. We're just saying his need for sex, quote, need for sex, right, can't be at the expense of you, like losing a sense of, your value, your safety, right? Those kind of things. Oh, yeah, that didn't hurt. Like if you say that hurt and then they tell you, no, that didn't hurt. See, they're not hearing you. They're kind of just defining your reality for you. So that's not a person who's really working at seeing you. So then how safe are you going to be to feel like you could have sex with this person? My husband says that I'm assigning evil intent to him. And I'm just kind of curious before we go into that. I'm not seeing any questions, and I'm not seeing any questions in the comments or on our little document that we've got going here. Oh, okay. Kim is letting us know that she's there. Okay, thank you, Kim. She's on it. Thanks, Kim. We see you. Um, and so Kathy says, my husband says I am assigning evil intent to him. I'm assigning evil intent to him. And so, what I could, say to that is, I'm just telling you what I'm hearing you say and how that's affecting me. That's it. Right? And, if he wants to go into like assigning evil intent, right? You can just repeat back, this is what I'm hearing you say, this is what I'm seeing you doing, and this is the impact it has on me. And knowing that the impact that it's having on you matters. It's valid, and it's okay for you to bring it up. Okay, so here's a question, Jen, that's come in. Can you give tips on how to be healthy, to choose healthy? So that is, to me, sounds a little bit broad. Is there something you could say to that, Jen, or does the question asker want to just expound on that a little bit more? Give tips on how to be healthy and choose healthy.
Yeah, I would like to hear a little more detail on from who asked that question. But I think, to me, I'm talking myself personally, is that to be able to choose healthy, that, to me, what that looks like is responding versus reacting. So if we just go back to the sleep example, so how can I be healthy to choose healthy? So I need proper sleep, or I could be more reactive the next day, snappy, dragging my feet, not as productive, whatever. But if I get the right sleep, then I'm doing the next right thing every time after that, because I've got the clear sense of mind, the heart, the physical energy to do it. So if that's kind of what we were thinking, in terms of that question, that was sort of how I took it. So there are steps that we can take to get clarity. Sleep is just one, that's a physical side. But what can we do if we're angry? How do we dispel or, get rid of some of that anger energy so that we can have freedom within ourselves to have other emotions, that kind of thing, to choose healthy? What are your thoughts? What comes up for you, Coach Unia?
Yeah, I love that response, Jen. And that's what, really we are focusing on in core, right? Committing. If you want to be healthy, it starts with committing to what's true and not pretending to yourself or, pretending for anybody, you know, or to the outside world, right? So that's really, core is really about being healthy and just living the life that God has for you, right? Before the Lord. So, again, committing to what's true and living according to that, and telling yourself the truth, being open, right, to what other people's feedback, wise others though, not people who are trying to, control you because they have, a mentality of selfishness, and being open to the Holy Spirit, being responsible for yourself, right? Responsible not only in how you're going to, act toward other people, but really responsible to take care of yourselves, right? The exercise that you need, right? A lot of exercise is really about managing those stress chemicals, right? Walking will decrease your cortisol levels, right? Sleep will also decrease your cortisol levels. If you guys, and a lot of you, I'm sorry to hear that you are functioning on 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. That means that your levels of cortisol will remain raised throughout the day, right? And then again, your body is going to be negatively impacted. So I'm seeing a comment here, going back to the topic of sex. Women still need sex too, but as you say, they need to be emotionally and physically safe also for that experience. Thank you for highlighting that. Yes, that is what we're saying. So going back to, this question of being healthy, right? If it is for, these groups aren't for everyone, but for those who feel like you want to be a part of this group, we just want to invite you because the doors are now open. And I will share that link again to join us, and consider these topics together and just do a deep dive into these topics with us. So another question. Okay, so it's expounding on healthy. Okay, so let's go to that again. Okay, so I've heard that dominant picks submissive, addict chooses enabler, someone that takes responsibility to fix the addict. Talk about healthy person picking a healthy person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I've heard that too, and I don't agree. I mean, I hear it, and trust me, don't get me wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you having posted that. What I'm saying is, I know from my own personal experience, I had no idea my husband of 17 years was an addict. How can I enable something that I didn't know? Right? You know, so I do kind of go, that's not always the case. But I understand what you're talking about. Talk about a healthy person picking a healthy person. I believe that comes with emotional intelligence and maturity. It comes from discernment, that God-given discernment, so that we can learn first and foremost how we show up as a healthy person. We'll never be perfect, but as healthy as we can be, and walk out who we want to be in God's eyes will help us find someone that's similar, not in terms of personalities or anything, but similar in terms of their health status, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And then we'll pick up that vibe from each other. I know I've heard lots of women out there say, I've just left one marriage and ended up in the exact same marriage again. I understand. I hear it often, unfortunately, but there are ways to rebuild and get our strength, just like we're talking about for core. And if we can build that foundation, just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, now we're not talking about air, food, and water right now, but if we're talking about building our own confidence, understanding what our truth is, being open to the Holy Spirit, all of that sort of stuff will give us that foundation to be healthy and find that healthy person that reciprocates to us.
Yeah. So I'm seeing that it was Jana who asked this question. Thank you for asking this question. I really love this question because, you know, a lot of times in the dating phase, right, you can end up with somebody who is, right, not healthy, right? And this is one of the checks, our exact topic today, right? Do you know what your needs are? Right? Do you, in a pattern, right? So sometimes you will have a need, and or your husband will have a need, and one will, you know, trump the other at times, right? But we're talking about overall pattern where his needs are always the ones that win, right? And so sometimes even in like a dating process, right? In the choosing process, it's really imperative that you take some time to understand what your needs are. Like, I have thoughts, I have feelings, and they matter, right? Even if nobody validated those for me as I was growing up, or no one in my world, right? I'm going to validate those for myself. And then kind of being really careful in the dating process that the other person, right? Do they always kind of make things about what they need? How do they react, right? Here's one, right? How do they react when things don't go their way, right? Or they might say, oh, you like flowers, I'll get you flowers. Oh, you like to have this kind of food, I'm going to get you their food. But that doesn't cost them anything, right? The place to look for is what happens when they don't get something that they want, right? That they tend to demand. And just so being kind of really careful to know that you have needs, right? And not constantly giving in, kind of like testing, not to just like be a trouble, like not just for fun or testing things out, but just really like kind of putting into practice, like, what if I took the time to think about what I wanted for dinner? And what if it was a little bit different than what they wanted? And just practicing voicing that. Or I don't want to watch that movie, or I don't want to watch football. You can watch football. I'm going to do something else, right? That kind of thing. So I don't know if that that addresses the question. Um, Another question we have, I feel guilty about spending money on myself, but then I will binge and spend a lot. I'm assuming this is a trauma response. Can you help me change my mental process? Any thoughts on that, Jen?
Yeah, I'm just rereading it. So I feel guilty about spending money on myself, but then I will binge and spend a lot. So it's almost like a boomerang effect of something. I don't know for sure if that's a trauma response because we certainly don't know enough about your story. to understand that. And we all do respond to trauma in very, very different ways. So that could very well, I'm sure, be true. So can you help me change my mental process? Coaching, especially in the group coaching program that we have coming up, it might not necessarily change your mental process per se, but it will help you gain a different perspective and put certain things into practice, both through our discussions each time we meet, as well as through the homework and the videos that Leslie provides. And it'll make a shift, an energetic shift, if you will. And so if that's what you might call changing your mental process, when I hear process, I think it's one step, then the next step, then the next step. And that definitely can shift, because what you're used to when you start over here and end up over there, we might take you on a slightly different path with either the same outcome or a different outcome. We don't know until we get there and we know exactly what we're talking about. Coach Unia, what do you say?
Yeah, I think that's an adequate response there, Jen. And if you do think that this is a trauma response, for some of you guys, if you're identifying that you have trauma, right? Looking for a trauma counselor. And even as I say that, I know that a lot of trauma counselors these days just are not having openings. So I'm going to just put that out there, that I know that that's kind of an issue too. Mm-hmm. But really trying to find one if possible. Mm-hmm. Okay, next question. My husband, and for those who are wondering, we're really trying to stick to an hour for you guys. Mm-hmm. So the next question, my husband grew up in a household where feelings were not expressed. His father was very authoritative and demanded obedience. This has caused my husband to view this as normal for a home life. How can I disconnect from his erroneous demands and stay true to healthy relations? Yeah. So this is kind of reminding me of the previous question asker when they said, I've heard that dominant picks submissive, right? So if you're with somebody who's super dominant, to make sure that you're not super submissive, right? Like if you think that that is something that you do, that you don't have a voice and you're not regularly making sure that you have a voice, like even within yourself, right? And so with this person, if he thinks that being authoritative and, demanding obedience is the way to be, you can simply disagree, right? You can say, well, that's, that doesn't work for me, right? So he has erroneous demands. Well, it sounds like, and you can just repeat it back to him so he can hear what he's sounding like. It sounds like you're saying that you, for example, want me to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to make your meal. And that just doesn't work for me, right? That's something that you want, but I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to need my sleep, right? So, well, what's another way that, I can show you that you're important, right? Without having to harm myself. Anything you want to add to that, Jen?
I think, no, everything you said is great. And I think, how can I disconnect from those demands? The disconnect is also, I think, again, in gaining that confidence and knowing that you have needs, so that it then, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if you truly believe it in yourself internally, you're going to be able to speak up against that. So another way of putting that is boundaries. So if you're having a reaction or a response to the way he's so demanding, you can say, honey, I am more than happy to comply to whatever. However, I can't even understand what you're saying when you talk to me that way.
Yes.
And walk away.
Yes.
We teach people how we want to be treated. And so I'm not saying, you don't want to get up at 5:30 and make his lunch, because maybe food is your love language, right? But there's got to be
those people who sleep at 9 and you've gotten sufficient sleep that way. You're not getting 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah, right. So I'm not saying don't give in to his needs, or, I don't want it to be a power struggle. I don't want there to be a shift in power from one to the other, male or female. Again, we're looking for the win-win here. And I'm sure there's a way for him to communicate what his needs are in a respectful, compassionate way. And until you get that, I don't think you're going to feel like doing it. Mm-hmm. And if you do, there could be some resentment, and then on we go, right? A whole bunch of yuckiness. So really, it's speaking up for yourself and saying, I really want to help you, but I can't hear you when you're yelling at me. Come talk to me later. Boundaries.
Yeah, like the other day, my husband got really mad at me because he said, I don't mean to laugh, but he said that I was talking to him like he was a child, right? I had no awareness that I was talking to him like a child, but he just got really mad and he's like, "You're talking to me like I'm a child, blah, blah, blah," right? And so I was like, that was an overly harsh way to give me feedback, right? And so later on, he's like, "I didn't even hear you apologize." I was like, you know what? Like, I, um, I appreciate that you're telling me that. I could see how you could have felt that way, and I will work on it. And I don't think that the level of harshness that you used in giving me that feedback was warranted. So that part I am not going to accept. And he said, "Well, I could see how that did sound harsh. So, right? So I will work on not giving you feedback in a harsh way." So here, right? Like he needs me to not talk to him like he's a child. It was something about like getting his utensils. What utensil do you need? Then, go get it. But his need was, don't talk to me like a child. My need was, I don't want to have feedback given in such a harsh way. And so to be able to like hear each other, can you kind of communicate on that level? Or does it turn into, something very different than that where you're just not being heard?
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of questions here. So um, let's go to the next one. How do you respond to a husband that says, once you meet my needs, then I'll try to meet yours?
That, oh, my heart again. I have these physical responses that, by the way, until I did a program of my own, like way back when, just similar to core walking and core strength, I didn't hear my body speaking to me.
Oh, yeah.
So if for no other reason to join core and learn and understand walking in your core strength, oh man, now I know how to listen. So
Mm,
what I love about that, and the reason why, again, I felt it up here, if you guys can see me holding my chest, is because it sounds so transactional, doesn't it? It's so
mhm.
conditional. Well, I'll only do this for you if you do it for me.
Yeah.
It sounds like not a partnership at all, and that breaks my heart. So how do you respond? You could even say something like that: this is a two-way street, not a one-way street.
Mhm.
Or something to the effect of, what that makes you feel like. I don't know, I'm at a loss for words, but I know it really bothers me when I hear that, because it sounds so conditional. All only if you do something for me. Ugh.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of wondering for this question asker too, if overall, like if you try to explain how you feel, how does he respond to that? Right? Is he able to hear how you feel? Right? Does that matter to him? Does he care about how you feel? Right? And if not, then you might want to, consider not trying to explain how you feel to somebody who is not trying to
Very
hear how
true.
you feel, right? And just starting to implement boundaries to keep yourself safe, right? You only engage people who, on that level, who are trying to hear you, right? And so if they're constantly batting down what your needs are. And I love what you said, Jen, about listening to your body, because your body will tell you, right? So really starting to tune into your body, right? I have knots in my shoulders, my stomach feels, a certain way, and it's telling you something. So right, that's another way to tune into your needs, and knowing that that's important, and you don't have to shut that down to meet somebody else's needs, even if other people tell you that you need to. um, okay, so my husband wants me to put his needs above our kids, which includes their emotional health. How can I handle this frustration, staying well for now?
Mhm.
Do you have thoughts, Jen? Do you want to?
Yeah. Um, yeah, again, that really breaks my heart, because the kids are dependent on us. And I don't know the ages of your kids, but assuming obviously they're still at home, and I don't care if they're 2 months or almost 20, if they're still within your care. I think we always want to lend ourselves towards their emotional well-being, because we're now trying to grow them into emotionally intelligent adults, right? So when he wants his needs to be put ahead of everyone else's, that also sounds like childlike behavior,
Mm,
where he's competing with children.
yeah,
And I'm very sorry for that. And when I get this look on my face, it's not one of judgment or disgust. It's heartbreak. It
yeah.
really is, because now, your husband's competing with children to get your attention and to have his needs met. So with handling that frustration, that's again having a healthy outlet to talk about it, whether it's a place like this with a trusted friend, maybe your small group at church, wherever it is that you could potentially release some of that frustration if in fact you can't talk to him about it. As Coach Unia said, sometimes you just can't win those conversations if they're so dominating. In those conversations, you can't rationalize with them. Otherwise, I would want to have a conversation with him. And
Yeah.
so, I really do need to tend to the children. Like our child will feel abandoned if they fall and skin their knee and I don't tend to them because you need me to go get you a drink of water. Whatever, I'm making that up, but you know what I mean? So there could be emotional damage done to those that don't understand. So if you can have a rational conversation, that would definitely be something that I would want to talk to him about. I wish we wouldn't have to have these conversations, but sometimes we do have to spell it out for them, right? So I don't know, Virginia.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me a little of our E step of core, which is being empathetic without enabling,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, how sad that he has such gaping needs that he would even want to put those above the needs of your own children, which includes their emotional health, right? How sad that he's in that place. And, you and your husband are in the role to care for these kids so that they could experience safety, right? And that is the role of the parents, is to give their children a sense of safety, right? That I'm right here with you. You're not alone, right? I'm here to care for you, but you matter. Those are the messages that uh, parents are supposed to give, right? And so just knowing that is the role that the Lord has given to you, right? He has not given you the role of treating your husband as one of your kids, right? And so how sad that your husband is in that state, and you can just give him empathy, like I'm so sorry that you feel unloved or whatever, and right? So using the word and can really help. So you're not, because the word but will negate whatever you said before.
That's right.
And so, yeah. And it is our role as parents to make sure that our kids are taken well care of and they have safety and they know that they matter. And that is our job. So we're going to need to do this. So kind of really setting that boundary that you are going to, take care of them. So, in terms of handling this frustration, like Jen said, seeking support. And sometimes you handle frustration just by addressing the issue head on,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just setting a boundary, right? And saying, I can't do that. I can't do that for you. I'm willing to do this, but I'm not willing to do that.
That's
Right.
right.
And you deciding what those lines are, right? For the sake of your kids and for your own sake.
Mm-hmm.
How do you ask for what you need or state what you need without it sounding like a list of things for someone to check off?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd like to know the answer to that too, because I don't think it has to come off as a list. I know sometimes, again, if the receiver, the person you're asking to help fulfill those needs, isn't, again, in that emotionally intelligent or mature place, that's when they may go back to that, well, it is just a checklist and it'll never be good enough for you and that kind of thing. So I'm not sure if that's quite what you mean. But I think there is a compassionate way to share it. And it's like a lot of conflict resolution. We talk in I feel statements, not you. So we want to make sure that the language we choose can help as well. So like you just said around using the word and instead of but, use I feel statements instead of you blaming type statements. Like you never do this for me. It would be better if you said, I really need your help getting the kids out the door. It's winter and it takes me twice as long to get their snowsuits on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something like that. Not you never help me and I'm always late because, and I'm not suggesting that's what you say. I'm just giving you examples of communication around it. And I would like to hear from who's watching or Coach Unia around, about that whole list idea, because there are some things where it does look like a checklist, but maybe other examples of when that checklist isn't so helpful. That's what I'd like to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just kind of want to back up a little bit, and I'm just kind of wondering that sometimes the things that you're asking for are just bare minimum things,
Mhm.
right? Like, I'm just asking for you to just acknowledge what I said, that it's valid. That's it, right? I'm just asking for you to give me some space when I'm getting super angry because I don't want to end up blowing up. So can you just please give me some space?
Mhm.
Right? So that's being responsible for yourself, right? Your need is for him to not continue to engage you because you're now about to lose it and you don't want to lose it, right? So you're being responsible for yourself to make sure that you don't, right, lose it, and you're going to take care of yourself. You're going to continue to talk to me, then I'm going to have to leave the room, right? That kind of thing. So um, I think that if you really look at what you're asking for, a lot of them are just bare minimum things, just bare minimum like respect, right? And it's not, um, again, we have to be careful with giving lists because sometimes, your husband or your wife, just in case there's people, um, men who are listening and this really resonates with you, um, but for the majority of our listeners are women. So um, you can end up um, giving a list and they said, well, I did this, this, and this. But the heart hasn't changed. The heart attitude hasn't changed. They're not seeing you. They're not validating you. They're not reflecting on themselves. They're not taking feedback, So I, without knowing more details on what are the things that you're asking for, I don't know if we can be much more helpful with the response, but that's just kind of what comes up for me.
Yeah, and I'll quickly add to that because thank you for bringing that up. That was excellent because I was on a Facebook Live talking to Leslie about lists and why they don't work. And if you are concerned about what you're presenting sounding like a list, I would also, again, taking responsibility for yourself, ask yourself, okay, so here's what I'm asking for, but why? And ask yourself why 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 times. Why am I asking for that? Okay, well, why is that important? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, why is that important? And eventually you'll get down to what the true need or want really is. And then if you present that, it won't show up so much as a checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be more articulate as to the heart change that you might need to see.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Okay, so here's another question. We're coming right up on the hour, Jen. So
Yeah.
this will be the last question we'll try to tackle today. If I am no longer married, would core help with me? I think I get triggered in intimate relationships, so I'm wondering if I have an anxious avoidant personality. So to answer that first question, absolutely. I have a family member who I won't say who that person is, but having core kind of just embedded in my system helps me to stay sane. It helps me to stay in line with the person that I want to be and who God is calling me to be,
Mhm.
right? It helps me to just remember how to take care of myself, right? How to stay empathetic. Though the empathy part, it's not easy when you're really mad. So don't be hard on yourself at that point, but you're working towards it, right? Um, but absolutely, it's just a way of existing in life, right? Just being true to the person that you are, right? That you want to be, right? And staying open to the Holy Spirit. Yeah. So yes, we invite you to join us if what we're talking about resonates with you and you want to um, just go deeper into these topics. And uh, here is the link that we will share with you, and we would just love to see you in those groups. They start mid March, and there are various times when you go to the site that you will see. And so um, I think we're right at the end of our time, Jen. So
Mhm.
thank you guys so much for joining us today. Any last things, Jen, you want to add on our topics today?
No, other than I just love what you said about how walking in core strength can just build us up as women, um, godly women. And this is such an amazing program that I wish they would teach it to high school students. to set them up for life. It is such a powerful program for all of us.
Yes. Oh, someone's asking when the next live is. Janice, thank you for asking us.
I was asking Kim, and I haven't heard back yet. Kim, if you can hear me, do you know when the next?
Yes.
I'm wondering that myself, so we can let you know.
And we do also want to say that that there are also payment plans for Walking in Core Strength. So just make sure to go and to this website that we have right here to find out the details, if this sounds like it fits for you. And so the next live, I think, might be tomorrow. No, is it tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Hold on, I'll quickly check my calendar, you guys. Thanks for asking.
Yes, that is a great question. It's Thursday. So this Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Okay, you know what? I'm seeing two more questions, and if we can answer these quickly, that'd be great. And so thanks, you guys, for bearing with us. I would love to do the core class and need it so badly, but I am not bringing in any income at this time, and my husband would never pay for it. Do you happen to have scholarships? So do you know the answer to the question about scholarships? Kim, do you know the answer? So you know what? Check back to this live, and when we get the answer, we will just put it in the comment section. So for the question asker. Okay, so Kim is letting us know we do not have scholarships for these programs. So there are no scholarships, but we do have payment plans. And so the next Facebook Live is 7:30 Eastern time. And the topic is, what is core strength and why is it absolutely crucial for you to develop it? So we've touched on a little bit today, and you will hear more about that. One more question. What do you do if you and one child have a chronic illness that pulls family resources? What do you do if you and one child have a chronic illness that pulls family resources?
So I'm assuming you're still talking about how to express your needs. And I think a lot of pretty much everything that we've talked about tonight still stands. I recognize wholeheartedly that when we do face chronic illness, that there's a whole other gamut of needs that we have, and we often feel more of that power situation because we're, quite frankly, not capable in some situations to do the same tasks that we might otherwise, and that can sometimes be used against us. But I would still stand strong with the idea that we hold boundaries, we speak up in a respectful and compassionate way as to what it is that we need, especially when there's chronic illness involved.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Jen. And so I'm seeing here from Kim that we do have scholarships for the Conquer, which is not open. That's like the membership group, right? Well, that's not open now. Today we're talking about Walking in Core Strength, the group coaching, which is open. So thank you guys so much for joining with us here. It was just really great to spend this time with you. And yeah, good seeing you too, Jen.
Oh, nice to see you. This has been great. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you, Leslie, for having this ministry and allowing us to share our thoughts as well. So I can't wait to go back and read all the comments again, because I know we miss lots as we're having this dialogue. So thank you all for joining us. It's been great.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.